accuses the previous administration of supervising the near collapse of the industry.
Here on the radio, ATL has collapsed over the last 10 years, particularly after the NPP left office. This company was literally brought to its knees.
Government is advancing a 6-point strategy it believes will address challenges in the sector. Big question is, what really is required to make the industry competitive? Top Story is brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans, your success, our passion. Gassam, the nation's builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. And Nationwide Medical Health Insurance, your healthcare family. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. Government is patting itself on the back over its claims that it has fixed what could have possibly been the collapse of the textile industry and rendered over 3,000 workers jobless. Trade and Industry Minister Alan Kyerematen says President Akufo-Addo's personal intervention saved the total shutdown of the Akonsombo Textile Limited. The company, established in 1967 with the capacity to employ 3,500 workers, has fewer workers due to a barrage of challenges, key among which is the influx of cheap and often substandard goods from China and other parts of the world. President Akufo-Addo, as part of his tour of the eastern region, spent some time with management and staff of ATL. Trade Minister Alan Kyerematen blames the NDC government for doing what he describes as very little to protect the textile industry.
It is amazing how the distortion of facts can totally obscure the truth of every situation that is going on that we have in our country. You know, you read the newspapers, you hear on the radio, ATL has collapsed, but the enthusiastic response and how you have received His Excellency the President shows that the matter is different. We all know, particularly those of you who work here, that over the last 10 years, particularly after the NPP left office, this company was literally brought to its knees. And not only this factory, you know that the textile factories in Ghana in the 90s could employ over 30,000 people. In the 90s. Now currently, the 3 or 4 manufacturing companies, you employ less than 5,000 people. And this factory itself is producing at less than 30% capacity. And by the time that we took over, the management and the owners of ATL had already decided that enough was enough. And that it was time for them, with all the investments that they had made in this government, to say goodbye. It took the courage of His Excellency the President and decide that ATL will continue to. He marshaled all the arguments that he could, even amongst us, his colleagues, to defend the point that it was important to save this company. Yes. And that's why you recall that the government had to intervene to save this factory.
Trade Minister Alan Kyerematen there engaging some workers there at ATL. Well, here are interventions he's announcing as antidotes to a failing textile industry.
When, unfortunately, we left office, over the 8 years, we saw what happened. And so, in addition to making sure that we save ATL and the other companies, the government, under His Excellency the President's direction, has decided to introduce a number of policy measures to deal with the challenges of the sector as a whole. 6 policy measures that we are introducing. Number 1, we are going to introduce tax stamps. We are going to introduce tax, and these tax stamps would identify all locally manufactured textile prints as well as those that are imported, to indicate that, number one, that the designs and logos have not been pirated, and that, number two, that the right duties and taxes have been paid. The only reason why you are not able to compete is because all these imported textile prints that come into the country come in without the payment of duties and taxes. And we are going to stop that. Is that we are now going to designate a single import corridor. So you cannot bring textile prints into this country except through that dedicated corridor, which is through Tema. You know that in 2016, even though we import almost 80 million yards of textile prints into this country, only one container was declared through the Tema. It means that the rest were being smuggled and through the Eastern Corridor. So we can no longer tolerate that. And that's why we are putting a dedicated entry point. So if you are a genuine importer and you want to import textile print, why do you want to import it through Lomé when it is destined for Ghana and you have a port in Tema? So it will come through Tema so that we'll be able to check those that are pirated and those that are not pirated. Number three, we are also going to ensure that we provide stimulus and other support to the textile companies.
So that's the minister there, Minister for Trade, Alan Kyerematen, announcing interventions that government wants to put in place to heal the industry. Now, the question is, will this work? And if it will, to what extent is the Akufo-Addo administration committed to the fight against fake textiles, mostly from China? Joining us on the line is General Secretary of the Textile, Garment and Leather Employees Union, Abraham Kumsin. Mr. Kumsin, thank you very much for your time this evening here on Top Story.
Thank you.
Let me also introduce Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, who was the Deputy Minister for Trade during the Mahama administration. He also joins us for some answers. Sir, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Kumsin. You've heard the minister speak about the interventions that government is looking to introduce, tax stamps that will avoid piracy, among others, and also ensure payment compliance. Do you think that this is the way to go to deal with the problem?
Yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared about the politics that they are bringing into this matter, because the challenges facing the textile industry is not about this political talks. Look, I wish.
Mr. Kumsin, before we get into the politics, there certainly will be a part where we get to talk about the politics. But before we get to talking about the politics, let's look at the real issues that confront you and whether or not these interventions government is announcing would help. To what extent will it even help?
Look, the issue is that if you have headache and you keep taking paracetamol, painkillers, you don't do thorough diagnosis to know what is causing your headache, you will die. What I heard him saying will not address the challenges on the ground. We've told them what they should do. You see, this tax stamp, the tax stamp, if it is for, revenue generation, okay, I think that will help them to get money. That's okay. But it will not address the problem of counterfeiting and pirating of designs. It will not. We have told them, and they won't take it. Look.
Okay, Mr. Kumsin, why do you think the tax stamp will not address the issue? Because from what he is saying, they're also introducing a single import, what he calls a single import corridor, through which every import should come, so that you don't have, imports of fabric or textiles going through other ports.
I wish I could be at your studio. You see, 2003, 13th August 2003, the revenue agencies, Revenue Agencies Governing Board, they organized a forum. I was there. and all the stakeholders were there. And we came out with some, recommendations. Which,
what were these recommendations? Can you take us through the recommendations?
You want me to read through?
If you remember, what you remember off the top of your head, can you take us through them?
That's why I've come to the studio. But you see, one, the immediate temporary restriction of importation of all finished print textile goods into Ghana. Introduction of tax stickers system for printed fabrics to be complemented with the institution of the auctioned quota system. This is 2003 under MPP. Importation of textile raw materials should be allowed to promote local value addition and employment generation. Importation should be only through restricted and approved entry points, such as the airport, seaport in Tema or Takoradi, and in 20-foot containers. Seizure of goods without the necessary import documentation at the point of sales. It's a whole document. I can't read all now. If I were to be at your studio, maybe I could give you a copy for you to be using it in your news bulletins. But you see, this is 2003. It is not a new system that they want to introduce. And I think it didn't work. It didn't work.
Okay.
And we insist that the anti-textile piracy task force should be, reorganized.
Okay.
It must be reorganized to work. Because if you are saying you are going to introduce tax stamp, the tax stamping, it was 2003. They brought the same system. It didn't work. 2003, the document is here. I will give you a copy.
Why do you think it didn't work back then?
Pardon?
Why do you think the tax stamp system didn't work back then? That will help us determine whether or not.
I've read to you the same system. This document is saying that 2003. This is what they should have done, or this is what they tried to do.
And was it done and it didn't work, or was it not done at all?
You must ask him, because he was blaming the NDC government. That's why I don't want any politics to come in this.
Okay. Well, Mr. Kumsin, hold on for me. Let me bring Murtala Mohammed in. He was Deputy Minister for Trade during the Mahama administration. Let me find out from him whether or not these were made clear to them and whether they were implemented. Mr. Murtala Mohammed, let me come to you on this with this question.
Well, let me say good evening to our cherished listeners. And I think that the minister unfortunately peddled a lot of falsehood when he went there. I can understand the desperation to please the president because the president was there. I think the response of Mr. Abraham Kumsin for me suffices. Abraham Kumsin, even said recently that they had actually asked their members to fast. Now, you have the very response Abraham Kumsin is given to. Remember in 2003, I guess Mr. Alan Chimantin was the Minister for Trade. Now, if you are the Minister for Trade and you implemented policies that never worked, and you are incidentally you are the Minister for Trade today, and then you are going back to implement the very policies you implemented, which never worked, has been testified by the people in the textiles and garment industry. But let me just respond to this quick statement he made, which was factually inaccurate. He stated that there is a success story now at that particular company. And he said that under the NDC, the 8 years of NDC's administration, that it was virtually on its
He said 3,000 jobs were almost lost.
No, I'm coming. As a matter of fact, the facts throughout the NDC, tell me one single year that we asked people in that company to go home. Last year, 2017, many workers from that same company were asked to go home. 2018, many workers from that same company were asked to go home. And if you listen to the Honorable Minister, he said that yes, there is a success story, and said because of the intervention of His Excellency the President. Unfortunately, he failed to tell us one single intervention of this President and this government. Not one. all the so-called success story he's talking about has to do with what the NDC.
Mr. Murtala, Mr. Mohammed, between 2003 and now, certainly you were in there. Do you recall exactly?
No, I wasn't there in 2003.
No, you were not there in 2003. What I'm saying is that between then and now, you have been a part of the story. Do you recall exactly which interventions you introduced? And when I say you, I mean your administration introduced when you were in office and how it fared so far.
I need to point out those palpable untruth he told so that I can be able to tell you what we did. So a lot of the things he said were absolutely not true. They were absolutely illogical. Because he himself said that the company was on its knees because of the intervention. And I expected you, the journalist, to ask him one single intervention this government made in that. The two challenges that confronted the company and many other textile companies in this country, one was Dumso, which we admitted that Dumso was indeed a challenge. Why it was a challenge? Because even those companies that tried to produce were producing at a very higher cost. The other one has to do with the importation of pirated textiles into this country. They should tell us, this government, throughout the 2 years they have been in office, not a single pirated textiles have been seized and banned. Part of the WTO regulations are that when you seize them, destroy them. We were doing this. And in fact, we had even contacted EDIF to give some financial support to those textiles companies as we did to the pharmaceutical companies.
So are you now listing for us the interventions you introduced, which you believe
worked? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that we had. One, it has to do with funding. Funding has been a challenge of those companies.
Okay.
Two, it has to do with the importation of pirated textiles into this country. Three, it has to do with the Dumso we experienced. And I don't want to dwell much on Dumso because by 2016 December, the NDC had ended Dumso. So I can only talk about those interventions. We had started negotiation to give funding to those companies through EDIF. Now, we're in the process when EDIF was changed to an Exim Bank. That prevented us from having the money to them. So the understanding was that let's Ghana Exim Bank starts completely, and then we can then access money to support it. But the principle and ideas and arrangements were all put in place. We need to be finding out from this Minister for Trade and Industry and this government what has happened to that which was handed over to them. And on the issue of even the importation of pirated textiles, the minister, interestingly, he has been a minister for trade before. He's saying that they just have to get tax stamps, and that solves this problem. He says that they have to get one route. The people who are bringing in those smuggled textiles don't care about the number of rules that government has. In any case, they bring them in illegally. What we need to do is to strengthen the security apparatus.
So as far as you're concerned, these interventions that government is announcing would not work?
These are futuristic. I'm saying that if they wanted to do that, they would have followed suit what the NDC did. And that is why I asked one simple question. 2017 and 2018, was there a single arrest of pirated textile? Because the task force, which was instituted and supported by government, had been abandoned. So how can this government be telling us that they mean it when they say that they will ensure that people do not? If Joy FM has actually reported an incident where the task force indeed embark on any operation to seize sites, seizing them itself serves as a social check on those who are bringing those textiles into this country. They abandoned the task force. There is nothing like a task force that is going on. In fact, what we went ahead to even do was to meet AMA and meet even property owners who were leasing their properties to those who were engaged in some of this. I remember on your medium, when we banned the textile, you have a known lawyer who is associated to this MPP, Lawyer Kufu. He said it was draconian. The MPP at the time officially said that the decision to seize pirated textiles and ban them was draconian. This was what they said when they knew that we were just following the regulations of the WTO, which we are signatory to.
Right, Mr. Mohammed, I'll come back to you, but let's really focus on what we believe will work. And so, Mr. Kumsin, I'm coming back to you. You're saying that these things that the minister is saying are not entirely new. These are things that you have actually recommended before in the past, which didn't quite work out well. What for you will be the solution? And to what extent do you say you've engaged government on this?
The task force which was introduced in 2010 did a lot to help. And we have recommended, we have advised the ministry to make sure that they allow the task force to operate. What they say is that, oh, no, they will cause fear and panic and a lot of things and that. I say, what fear and panic? The people are engaged in illegal activities. The activities that go to destroy the local industry. And he said they shouldn't function. So what is it? They say, oh, the moment they allow the task force to work, the traders have threatened to also embark on demonstration. Look at this.
So, Mr. Kumsin, let's list them one after the other. Mr. Kumsin, let's list them one after the other. What are your expectations of what government must do to make this work? One, the task force must work. Two, number two.
As I speak, ATL, go there. Send some of your correspondents to go there and go and find out from the workers. Those workers that were selected to come to listen and be shouting, I don't think that the core operators were present. I'm telling you this. But after this interview, calls have been coming. I even put my phone off. They wanted to know what was actually happening. I said, you were jumping and laughing and clapping and
certainly we heard from the responses that they gave the minister that they certainly supported what he was saying and they believed it was true.
Please, listen. The thing is that the company needs sustained supply of raw materials to operate. As we speak, 8 years, they get some greenback from Nigeria, about 50 days, it comes, and in a matter of 3-4 days, it's finished. The workers will go back, they'll go home and go and sleep. And they expect to be paid. Go there, whether they are working. Go there, you go there. Go and see. From Monday, go and see whether the workers will be working. What kind of hypocrisy is this?
Okay. So what you're saying is that the workers who were cheering the minister on this afternoon were being hypocrites? Because really, as far as you're concerned, no work is going on there. Is that correct?
Pardon?
Are you saying that there's no work going on at ATL at the moment and that the workers are cheering on the minister were being hypocrites?
This concept thing that they are doing there, if you like, I won't tell you. Go, send your people to go there for Monday. They should visit the plant. They should go there. I won't tell you anything. Because they think that I'm doing what politics?
Yeah, but speaking of politics,
I don't talk politics when it comes to these matters. It's a very serious issue that I will not bring in any partisan politics in it. It's a real matter. If you like, Monday, I will give you transport to go there, to spend some few days there, and you will come back and report.
Oh, Mr. Kumsin, I wouldn't need transport. We already have that covered. But I just want to find out from you, what do you think is the way forward? Because the more we talk about it and the more we politicize it, the more the industry collapses and job losses are imminent, and we know the effects that it has on the economy. What for you, dispassionately, without the politics, is the way forward?
Blame game that this NDC did and that is annoying. To me, it is annoying. If you have good ideas to apply, use it. But don't say that, look, the industry started collapsing, not today. That's when NDC realized that, look, they must take some measures to halt this thing. And that is the time that they established the task force in 2010.
So has your outfit engaged government, the NPP administration, as of now, to deal with the problems? What did they tell you? What did they tell you? What has been the response?
We have meetings. If you advise them, they won't take it. If you advise them that, look, the tax stamp, yes, but the tax stamp will not solve the problem of pirating and then counterfeiting. If you want your taxes, okay. But we are saying that the tax stamp is not what will check the pirating and counterfeiting. And they won't take it. So what do? They're in power. So if they say they will mind you. If you talk the things that they know. But they don't have worked in the industry since 1971. I've worked in the textile industry since 1971. Okay. And if somebody would search background to talk and they won't take it out, they should do their politics with it.
Okay.
They should do their politics.
Mr. Mohammed, let me take your very final comments on this.
Well, like I said, do you know somewhere 2015-16, the same company printed the textiles, the party cloth of Umar Bongo, and many other politicians in Southern Africa? 2015, 2016. Two, this government hasn't done a single thing. The only way that we can find a solution to this is to revive the tax force, which was doing tremendously well. Two, is to ensure that the newfound friends of this government, that is the Chinese, who are bringing those textiles, are stopped. The tax force did tremendously a good job. And three, you also observe that everything the minister said was futuristic. This is what we intend to do. Yet, the success that is happening, they are not going to talk about it and lead it to NDC. Now, the EDI Fund, now which is an Ghana Exim Bank, which we started and had understanding that the moment the Exim Bank started work, we were going to ensure that these monies were given to revive the textiles companies. The Exim Bank has been in operation at least between 2016, somewhere in November 2016, up to date. This government should tell us why they are not accessing the money for the Exim. So the only way we can do that is to resource them and give them the funding. And that is the reason why throughout the NDC, not a single person from the company was asked to go home. Under this government, a lot of people have been asked to go home. I have received a lot of calls from people engaged in it that they were party boys they brought. And then when they say they clap, you see, we're
unable to verify that claim at this point.
The difficulty I have with this minister, the difficulty is that the very things he did in 2000 when he was the Minister for Trade, and there is nothing positive to show to it. These are the same solutions he's suggesting that can bring about, you know. And you see,
Mr. Masala, wrap up for me quickly.
And that mine is just to remind the minister what Cesaro said, that if you fail to know what happened before you were born, you always remain a child. And that is precisely what is happening. And his responses today is a symptom of the mess in which we are as a people.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time this evening here on Top Story. But President Akufo-Addo is still in the Eastern region. We can get the very latest from our correspondent, Maxwell Kudeko. Maxwell, what is the latest on the president's tour so far?
Well, the president has been commissioning some major projects today. That's the second day of his tour. We started off from the Abem in the Kwabi area, where the president commissioned the second factory in the Eastern region under the one district, one factory policy or the project. So the Brim Oil Company Limited, the second to be commissioned under the policy. And commissioning the project, the president indicated that most of his critics have been moving around town, saying that they are not seeing anything under his administration. So, but he, in response, said that those who think that they are not seeing anything, or those who are propagating that they are not feeling the development, possibly may be suffering from eye problems or ear problems. So he eventually assured the chiefs and people of Kwabi that his government, before the end of his first tenure, will deliver on every campaign promise.
Okay. Marcel, quickly, let me find out from you whether these companies have companies that the president commissioned have already started work.
Yes, precisely. The first one he commissioned yesterday has been working for some years now, about 2-3 years ago, and the government went in and then invested capital and expanded the project to create more employment. What he commissioned today has also been defined for some time. And we are told that early this year, government went in to pump in some capitals. My project manager for today's commission, the Brim Oil Company, Mystery Biney, in his speech indicated that government has been very helpful to the company by absorbing the company under the 1D. He said that the company is going to employ, or is currently employing about 300 workers, both professionals and floor workers.
Thank you very much, Maxwell Kudeko. Maxwell Kudeko there following the president who is on tour at the moment in the Eastern region. Top Story is brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. Gasem, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting. Ready? And Nationwide Medical Health Insurance, your healthcare family. My name is Gifty Ando Apia, and very soon we'll be connecting with Ghana. Do stay with us.